Hi everyone, I'm Jaycee Gaspar. I'm a full-time scientist and part-time content creator and crafter from Denver, Colorado. And I want to say a huge thank you for picking up the full All My Senses bundle. This collection is deeply personal to me. It's an exploration of the human experience told through the lens of continuous line art and the structural beauty of cubism. Whether you're drawn to the fluid, ethereal profiles or the bold geometric facets, these designs are meant to be a sensory puzzle for your imagination. Because this collection is built on tonal values and intentional planes, it pairs beautifully with the color systems like the DIY color deck from Spellbinders or the Sarah Renee Clark color cubes, making it easy to build professional artistic palettes. I designed these pieces to help you tell your own multifaceted stories, and I'm so honored you've invited them into your craft room. I'm so excited to dive into these projects with you and see how you bring these profiles to life. Let's head over to the craft desk and start creating something together. Up first is the All My Senses BetterPress plate and die set. This set features 8 sentiments and a single pass die for various occasions. They all relate to the senses, of course, and pair well with other existing collections from Spellbinders. For the best results on my projects, I used 2 shims on my BetterPress system to get fine line prints and beautiful texture on my cardstock pieces. However, this is going to depend on your setup, like the use of cotton card panels from Spellbinders or your favorite color wheel cardstocks. Here's a quick example of All My Senses sentiments on a color blocked background, and one of the cards from the DIY color deck. Because these sentiments are so versatile, I'll be using them to anchor the rest of the designs we're building today. Let's see how they look when paired with some of the more abstract elements. This is the color card and example palette I'm using for the next reveal in All My Senses. Ambient Aura Stencils set is a collection of 6 stencils. These stencils are made to work together, separately, upside down, fragmented. They're truly unique backgrounds just like each individual crafter. 1A, 2A, and 3A have smaller shapes. 1B, 2B, and 3B are larger amorphous shapes. Let's use a selection of stencils together to see how beautifully they layer together. I'm starting with a light pastel pink panel of A2 cardstock. There is no correct order to layer these images. However, I would recommend planning your layers from lightest to darkest value to keep your colors crisp. On the 2B stencil, I'm blending a bright orange. 3A, a light cool blue. Notice that because blue and orange are opposite on the color wheel, I don't want to end up with a muddy mix of colors, so I'm strategically shifting some images so that the color value stays relatively the same. 1A is a deep hue, 2A in a deep brown, and 3B in the same tonal ink as the base cardstock. To complete this experiment in color and form, I'm matching my sentiment to the base cardstock for a seamless, modern look. I'm also adding a small heart from one of our upcoming sets, a tiny intentional detail that bridges the gap between these abstract shapes and the human heart. Now that we've set the atmosphere with our ambient aura, it's time to introduce the heartbeat of the collection. This is Whisper Weave. While the stencils represent the energy around us, this set brings us back to the human form using that clean, uninterrupted single line style we discussed earlier. It features 2 striking portraits that illustrate the delicate, woven connection between our thoughts and our senses. There are also 3 standalone sentiments and coordinating shadow dies to bring the scene together. Let's see how these fine line plates interact with the textured backgrounds we just created. This color deck card is the perfect example for this card. The parallels between the butterflies and the female gaze are serendipitous. On an A2 panel of Spellbinders Fog cardstock, I'll blend a warm deep blue base starting from the bottom of our scene up to the top. I'll let the majority of the fog cardstock come through. I'll use select images from Ambient Aura to create 2 intentional spotlights on the top portion of the blended cardstock with a muted warm pink ink. I'll transfer this blended cardstock panel to my BetterPress system. A quick hack for you, I use a thin typing weight A2 panel of paper to make my own registration sheets. If I want to create this card in a future project, I know exactly where I placed my press plates. I'll place that to the A2 registration lines on my BetterPress magnetic chase, and then put my Whisper Weave plates on top. Now I already have lines, but just pretend for a moment we are starting fresh. Then with a deep brown ink pad, I'll selectively color the lines that illustrate the face. And then with a true hue red ink pad, I'll color the butterflies. After running this through my Spellbinders Platinum, I'm left with this gorgeous impression of ink. And it so happens that the Ambient Aura stencil nicely framed the silhouettes of the faces. With an alcohol-based marker, I'll selectively outline some of the shapes on the faces to create some depth. I'm deepening areas like the cheekbone, jawline, inner ear, eyebrows, eyelashes, nostrils, and lips. I felt like this helped elevate and highlight key facial elements on this illustration. Now back to that hack. Now that I like the placement of these two plates on my magnetic chase, I'll outline the placement of the plates with a pencil or pen and keep this A2 sheet with the BetterPress packaging for future use. Another technique I like using with these Ambient Aura stencils is to use them as a template for some cut shapes. Sometimes I want to add solid color without mixing two inks together. I'll use a shape from an image and layer from Ambient Aura and trace the outline with a pencil before cutting it out. This is particularly helpful for light cardstocks on dark backgrounds. It would be impossible for this color to appear as vibrant on top of a dark background. Before I add these strategic images to the scene, I'll add some splatter for some shine. I used the Yasutomo watercolor mixing set in pearl silver to add the splatter to the BetterPressed panel. Then I'll foam mount the pastel pink and deep brown shapes to the bottom left area of the Whisper Weave scene. I paired this Soar High sentiment from the same Whisper Weave bundle and embellished this card further with some coordinating pink enamel dots. By combining the structured registration of the press plates with the organic hand-cut shapes from the stencils, we've created a piece that feels both intentional and alive. The subtle shimmer of the splatter against the deep pressed lines invites the viewer to look closer, engaging both sight and touch. It's a perfect representation of how our environment and our inner selves are constantly woven together. Moving from the single, focused portraits of Whisper Weave, we transition into a broader exploration of the human collective. This is Perceptual Profiles. While our last project centered on an individual's internal woven thoughts, this large-scale press and foil plate captures the external world, the many faces and perspectives we encounter every day. It is a beautiful, dense tapestry of continuous line drawings where eyes, lips, and profiles overlap and intersect. To plug my first collection with Spellbinders, Jack of all trades, the deluxe deck press plate instantly became a signature piece of the collection, and I wanted another BetterPress plate to do the same. Before we press this image into this chartreuse A2 panel, I'll use the Ambient Aura stencils again to create some key highlights. The 1A, 2A, and 3A stencil layers are made to perfectly highlight and frame certain faces and lines of perceptual profiles. I'll color the 1A and 2A layers in a similarly toned green to the base cardstock color, then fill the 3A layer with a light blue. I'll affix the stencil background to the platen following the A2 registration lines of the magnetic chase. Then I'll center the Perceptual Profiles press plate to the magnetic chase. I'll use a deep blue-green ink to transfer the Perceptual Profiles design to our stenciled background. I love how the Ambient Aura stencils beautifully frame the faces and support the Perceptual Profiles' continuous lines. To mirror the color deck card example, I'll fill in the lips of the Perceptual Profiles images using an alcohol-based marker. Then with a white fine line paint pen, I'll add some glossy highlights to the lips. To finish this card and add solid blocks of color, I'll trace certain shapes of the stencils again and cut out coordinating cardstock colors to the color deck. I like adding these solid shapes to the background as I feel like it helps highlight and anchor the sentiment. To mirror the highlighted lips of the scene, I'll use the You Have Good Taste sentiment from All My Senses sentiments to give this card some meaning. Then I'll embellish this card with coordinating bright red enamel dots. This project really showcases how the different layers of this collection are designed to communicate with one another. By using the Ambient Aura stencils to spotlight specific faces within the crowd of perceptual profiles, we're effectively pulling individual stories out of the collective. With the final touch of the You Have Good Taste sentiment, we've transformed a complex artistic background into a playful high-end greeting that is as much a piece of art as it is a card. Let's keep this momentum going as we look at our next piece. This next product brings our journey into a bold new dimension. This is the Line of Being cutting die. While we've previously explored the intricate and overlapping world of line art through press and foil, Line of Being distills that human experience into its most striking graphic form. This single cutting die is the perfect bridge between our two main artistic inspirations. It carries the fluidity of a continuous line drawing, but introduces the structural, segmented feel of cubism. This isn't just a portrait, it's a representation of the different facets of our identity coming together as one. Let's see how we can use this die to create a bold focal point that truly stands out from the page. This cutting die has cutting lines for an A2 panel, as well as a centered continuous line figure. The reason for the design of this plate is to allow you to seamlessly inlay and align the intricate cut pieces into their respective spots. I cut the main image once from a panel of black cardstock. I'll keep both positive and negative pieces for now, but pull in Ambient Aura stencils to help create interesting forms on our background. On another panel of chartreuse cardstock, I'll fill the 3B layer with a true green and the 3A layer with a similarly colored green ink. Then using another stencil and a pale pink cardstock, I'll trace two of the shapes and cut them out to help break up the greenery in this background. Real quick, the 1-inch punch made for the DIY color deck kit is the perfect size to isolate the heart and lips of this die. I want to stack some upcoming layers, and to preserve my cardstock, I reduced cardstock pieces so that they only cut out the left and right eyes, the heart, and lips. That's what I have on the Spellbinders tray are various layers of the Line of Being. To assemble all of these pieces, I'll use the negative die cut black cardstock and overlay this panel on top of our stenciled background. This will serve as our template for all the fine die cut pieces. Then I will stack the remaining shapes to give this card some dimension and help this outline really stand out on this card. I cut 3 layers of cardstock for each fragment of the figure. Then on the final layer of the lips and heart, I used a bright red and pink respectively. I let this fully dry before removing the negative cardstock black panel. I used the blunt end of my tweezers to help weed the fine cardstock from around the die cut figures. Once I've lifted off the template, I'm left with this perfectly placed figure on the center of my stenciled background. You could use this template again or use it on another card. I added splatter from the Yasutomo watercolor mixing set in pearl silver again to embellish this card. Then I centered an All My Senses sentiment to the bottom. The contrast between the vibrant cut cardstock shapes and the precision of the die-cut outline perfectly captures that cubist-inspired synthesis we set out to explore. We've turned a minimalist drawing into a multi-dimensional portrait that feels both grounded and ethereal. It's a bold reminder that our identity isn't just one thing. It's a beautiful collection of moments, colors, and perspectives all coming together in harmony. Now let's take these concepts of form and dimension into our next project. As we move further into the collection, we transition from the fluid ethereal lines of our previous projects into something more structural and grounded. This is Fragmented Gaze. While Line of Being gave us the outline of the face, Fragmented Gaze fully embraces the cubist inspiration of All My Senses. By deconstructing the portrait into bold, intentional planes, it allows us to examine the human form as a collection of angles, shadows, and light. It's a graphic, daring set that invites you to play with color and dimension to build a truly multifaceted portrait. Let's see how these fragmented pieces come together to create a striking, modern vision. On a pale pink panel of cardstock, I'll use Ambient Aura to help frame our upcoming Fragmented Gaze figure. I filled the stencil with another similarly toned pale pink, and then the smaller auras with a bright red that coordinates with the upcoming colors in our portrait. I cut all the pieces in this die set following the guides and tones found on the assembly guide. As you experiment with color deck palettes, make sure you're referencing the assembly guide to help get the correct shadows on this figure. The assembly guide isn't just a map, it's a cheat sheet for understanding how light hits a surface. To mimic the color deck card shown earlier, I'll give this portrait a unique pink-violet shift, but still give this figure the coordinating shadows and cardstock colors to help give this angled visage some dimension. The debossed registration lines on the largest die help you position and assemble this piece. There are debossed lines on some aspects of the face, lips, cheek, earrings, the shadows on the décolleté, and neck as well. Once the completed Fragmented Gaze image is assembled, I'll position this off to the left side of the stenciled background. To pull the gaze into focus, I'm adding a coordinating all my senses sentiment that aligns with the structural lines of the portrait. By combining these geometric planes with the soft stenciled aura, we've created a card that feels like a modern masterpiece, proving that even when we are fragmented, there is a beautiful, unified story to be told. This is the perfect way to bring our sensory journey to a close. This is Sensory Facets. If the rest of the collection has been a study of how we perceive the outside world, this set is the ultimate expression of how we feel from within. It's the most complex and rewarding die in the All My Senses collection, featuring 20 intricate cutting dies that allow you to build a full-face portrait from the shoulders up. This is where our cubist inspiration reaches its peak, by using mirrored heart shapes for the cheeks and a perfectly symmetrical split-face design. We are illustrating the internal balance of our senses. It's a graphic, beautiful puzzle that celebrates the duality of our experiences. Let's dive into our final assembly and see how these dozens of facets come together to create one bold, soulful, and unified vision. Like Fragmented Gaze, the assembly guide and debossed lines are going to help you perfectly assemble these images. There are some things to note while assembling this figure. The base cardstock color, in my case the black A2 cardstock piece, acts as the hair to the portrait. The two yellow-green pieces paired with the shoulder will help me frame the shape of the hair. The easiest way I've found to start framing this face is to assemble from the bottom up. I'm gluing the shadow layers of the neck area to their respective halves. Again, there are debossed lines to help position these two pieces together. Then on the tops of the shoulders is the two yellow-green pieces that help frame the hair. I'll begin assembling the detailed pieces to both halves of the face, starting with the hearts on the cheeks, then the pairing on the lip pieces. I've cut the contour shapes of the face in various shades of brown. I loved experimenting with different palettes on the assembly, as long as the values of cardstock roughly matched a light, mid, and dark tonal range. The face would perfectly translate into a more dimensional and angled profile. I found it easiest to get these contour shapes in first, then inlay pieces like the eyeshadow, eyebrows, and eyelashes. Then I glued the two heart pieces to the respective hemispheres of the face. Finally, the two halves meet right at the lips, creating that perfect symmetry we were looking for. To finish this card, I'll foam mount the completed face on top of the neck to give that final commanding presence. I'm anchoring the scene with the I love you with all my senses sentiment. It's my personal favorite from the set because it truly captures the heart of this entire collection.